We're at a really interesting time in history because we have a president who is about to be in office, but we had 4 years of him in the past between 2017 and 2021. So we can look at history and see almost if how a second term could play out. And his first term Department of Education secretary was Betsy DeVos. What did you think about her? And do you think that that thread will continue in his next term?
Yeah, I think that was just the beginning, right? You know, I was also elected to my role as a school board member in 2020, and that was the beginning of the public education culture wars. I think it was just the roadmap that was leading us to where we are today. I do think that it's going to be worse. I do think an administration with Linda McMahon as the Secretary of Education would be more extreme. And I do think that they're going to continue to attempt to decentralize education from the federal level, bringing it back down to the states. And that should be a concern to people. I know on the surface why that sounds considerate and like local control, but you know, we have an example here in the state of Florida, and it's a coming attraction for the rest of the United States. Florida is 50th in teacher pay, 46th in the nation for our average SAT scores. We're teaching students that there was benefits to enslaved people. So we need to be concerned if the federal government no longer has the ability to have authority over states' decisions when it impacts the overall education of our students.
Let's talk about that because that was a promise Donald Trump made on the campaign trail. He's going to shut down the Department of Education, give it back to the states. You're saying, hey, that's not a good idea. Talk about that a little more.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when he's claiming about shutting down the Department of Education, it's more about the politics of it than the actual policy changes. It's just playing into a wide agenda, right? So they're trying to attempt to shift education control entirely to the states so that their ideological views can be imposed into curriculums. And like I said, it's an unfortunate reality because that already has happened here in our state of Florida. They have been pushing for greater control over what has been taught in our schools. They have focused on banning books, to rewriting history to fit their perspectives. And just shutting down the Department of Education is going to remove that federal oversight, and it will make it easier and easier for states like Florida to continue to push their agenda without any accountability at all.
I know that he said he wants to shut down the Department of Education, but he did nominate Linda McMahon to lead it. So how do you square that away? Do you think he's going to follow through on that promise?
I do. I do believe that he's going to ensure that people like Linda McMahon can accomplish some of the things that he wants to accomplish. Because the reality is the president doesn't have the power to abolish a federal agency like the Department of Education. Congress does. But he also has people within the Congress that will do anything that he asks just to get a leg up. So I do think that it's a concern. I do think that he's going to take it apart piece by piece. I think some of the things that he's going to start with are access to college education grants, public service loan forgiveness, reducing funding sources for things like Title I and special education funding. I do think that we're going to see that. I don't think that him appointing Linda McMahon to this position is a safeguard.
She'll have to go through a confirmation hearing to officially be confirmed as Secretary of the Department of Education. What questions do you think need to be asked during that hearing?
I think it's really important for members of Congress to ask about how are you going to address the critical need for educators in front of our classrooms across the United States. Really get down to those issues that impact families. What are you going to do about the fact that our class sizes are growing tremendously all across the states? How are you going to continue to increase access to early childhood programs and after-school programs to support our families who are accessing public education? I think it's really important to stick to really specific education-based questions to identify that vulnerability in her experience.